What's up, guys? Just doing a quick jump rope here to warm up. First thing I'm going to do today is some deficit deadlifts. I was going to close grip snatch, but North Dakota, it's cold outside, late October, it's 6 a.m., it's dark, too cold to bring the bar out there. It's like upper 30 degrees, like 38, 39 degrees right now. I can't snatch or jerk in my garage because the ceiling's too low, so I'm just going to skip it, go right into the deficit deads, then some bench press, then some pen lay rows. And between sets, I'll answer some questions. I'll go through some comments, answer some questions between sets. So, yeah, that's the plan. I'm working up to a top single today and then a couple back off triples after that. All right, 635 deficit pull here. I'm gonna go 655, that'll probably be my top set. All right, 655, here we go. That 655 actually went pretty smooth. I probably have a little bit more in the tank, but I'm gonna save it. So I'll drop down, do a couple triples here. Yeah, let's get some questions answered. Will, what do you think of Squatober? Is that something you would ever do? I'm not doing it right now, obviously, but I'm a huge proponent of Squatober and Deadcember. I actually might do Deadcember with a couple of friends. You know what's funny is I think a lot of the people that make fun of Squatober, first of all, that's a really lame take, is to like make fun of Squatober, because the people that make fun of Squatober, it's always from this like optimal performance kind of lens. And it's like, there's benefits of training every day, regardless of what you're doing, beyond just like the long-term physiological adaptations in terms of improving athletic performance. So like, it's such a lame take when people make fun of Squatober. It's always like, well, you shouldn't be squatting heavy 5 days a week because that's not going to help you run faster. It's not going to help you jump higher. It's always like through that kind of lens. I'm kind of strawmanning it a little bit, but that is essentially what the people who make fun of Squatober say. For a lot of people like me who just enjoy training, they're already strong, they're already pretty athletic. I'm 31 years old. I'm not going to get much stronger as it is. I'm not going to get much faster, more explosive as it is. Training is just a hobby. It gives me something to do. It's an outlet. It's a way to spend my time that is constructive and productive. There's a lot of alternatives that I could be doing with my time, or anybody could be doing with their time, that's way less productive and good for you than training. So like, if people want to do Squatober and they're squatting Monday through Friday every single day of the week, like, I just don't understand why you would make fun of that. Yeah, I think it's just a lame take when people make fun of Squatober. If you think about Squatober, it's really just a way for people to organize some sort of community to train together with. They all have a plan that they're following together. That's a good thing. I just don't understand. I do understand it, but it's just lame. Those are my thoughts on Squatober. Like I said, I might do Deadcember with a friend of mine in Grand Forks here, so I'm looking forward to that. I just think it'll be fun. Yeah. Okay, gonna do a back off set here at 6 plates. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plates, whatever that is, 585. But last thing about the Squatober thing is that the people that make fun of it is they're totally just discrediting or discounting the psychological benefits of training, the community aspect of training. Do they really think that the people who are doing Squatober, or the people who are the authors of Squatober, do the people who criticize it really think that the people doing Squatober think that they're gonna reap a ton of athletic rewards from it anyways? It's a 30-day thing. It's a 30-day challenge. It's a challenge. It's not meant to be a long-term athletic development program. I'm so annoyed with myself. I forgot to hook my OVR up to my top single deadlift. I wanted to see what that speed was, but I'll put it on for my back offs here. Hey, Will, is icing an injury really counterproductive? This is what I keep being told, but intuitively it doesn't seem right to me. Okay, this is a funny question because I see this too all the time on social media. So you know the acronym RICE? It stands for rest, ice, compression, elevation. How that was like the recommended guideline or the recommended steps to take for an acute sports injury. So so it's true that that is no longer the recommended guidelines, but people forget that ICE is still part of the newly updated recommended guidelines. And this is I think it's from the ACSM, American Heart Association, British Journal of Sports Medicine, all of these like governing bodies. And yeah, you should be skeptical of governing bodies, but all of these governing bodies have come to a consensus that ice, compression, and elevation still should be part of the acute rehab or the acute treatment of sports injuries process. Yeah, I see all the time that like you shouldn't ice an injury. I don't really see people saying you shouldn't compress or elevate an injury, but people commonly say you shouldn't ice an injury, that icing an injury is counterproductive for the healing process. It's not. Like the new acronym now is POLICE, POLICE. P stands for protection, so you protect the injured area. OL stands for optimal loading. So yeah, that's like the new part of the acronym, is that you should be loading the tissue optimally. That's going to facilitate and encourage the healing process of that area. And then ICE, police, is still ICE, ice compression and elevation is still part of the recommended guidelines in that acronym. And ice. So what ice does is it constricts the blood vessels of that injured area because you're applying cold to it. So it's not going to deliver as much oxygen, as much metabolite. It's going to limit the swelling. That's a good thing. People say that you should have swelling to an injured area because swelling facilitates the healing process, which it does because it's sending nutrients. But your body overreacts to an injury, so you want to limit the swelling. And then you don't want swelling to pool up over time. So that's what the compression does. Compression, it compresses that area, so there's less area for blood to pool, for hemorrhaging. So that's what the compression does. And then elevation is just allows gravity to assist in the venous blood flow away from the tissue to limit pooling of swelling, like the blood pooling. So yeah, I don't understand that. I think that's another thing. It's kind of like the Squatober thing where people just like shit on ice because that's the popular thing to say. Ice is still part of the recommended guidelines for treating an acute sports injury. Sorry, I feel like I'm getting all worked up with all these questions. I'm going to do another set here. One caveat to the ice thing is that is meant for acute treatment of an injury. So if you're talking about like a long-term chronic injury that somebody has to an area, ice probably isn't going to help. But compression is still recommended for something like that. So yeah, wrapping. I don't think I explained that police acronym very well. So say you get an injured ankle, say you sprain your ankle. First thing you should do is either brace it or splint it if needed. Second thing to do is load it. So if you can walk and move around on it, you do that. Third thing is ice, then compression, then elevation. I don't know if I explained that in that first ramp there. But yeah, chronic injuries, say you have like chronic swelling, ice probably isn't going to do much for that. But ice does provide an analgesic effect, which is just reducing pain. So that's good. You want to reduce pain because if you reduce pain, then you're more likely to be able to move it without pain, meaning you're more likely to load the injured area without pain. So yeah, ice does have a lot of benefits. It baffles me how people are so anti-ice now. People will cite like there isn't enough strong evidence. It's like, shut up. I'm working up to 2 hard sets of 6 today. All right, first set here at 325, 330. 330 for a set of 6. Probably got to stay there for my second set. 0.15 is the speed of my last rep. That is slow. I think according to the OVR numbers, 0.12 is kind of where you're at for your 1 rep max, or before you can no longer do another rep. So I'm at 0.15 in my 6th rep. So I'm really close to failing. Will, I feel a lot of trap involvement when I do power cleans. Is that a form problem, or is it normal when you're starting the Olympic lifts? You should be feeling your traps when you're doing Olympic lifts. That's normal. If you're maximally pulling on the bar, what the trap's primary action is to elevate your scapula back here. So if you're pulling on the bar, you're elevating that scapula, you're shrugging the shit out of your traps, dude. So you should be, maybe if it's not very light, you don't need to like pull with maximal intent. So maybe like if you're just starting off, you shouldn't feel it as much, but maybe you should. But if you're cleaning heavy or snatching heavy, yeah, you should feel your traps. A lot of you guys are asking me to do the general diet video, so I'll make sure I get that done. I just don't know how to do it. If I like just talk on camera about it, or if I do like a vlog, I'd feel like kind of lame if I did a vlog of my daily eating, but I'll figure out a way to do it for you. Hey, Will from the UK, trying to get better at Olympic lifting. I've seen a lot of emphasis on treat it like a jump cue to emphasize triple extension and propel the bar upwards. What are your thoughts? I've used the jump cue before. It just depends on who I'm teaching and who I'm coaching in the moment. So like I think the jump cue is a really good cue for a lot of people. It's not appropriate for other people. But if like all of these cues, dude, cues are just, they're context dependent when you're going to use them or not. There's some cues are universal because they're universal for a reason, because they work with almost everybody. The jump cue seems to be that way, like majority of the time. But obviously you can get someone who's like jumping and then they're kind of floating, and then they're like their arm mechanics are off because they're just like in midair for too long. Floating, like I would say floating is the right word to describe it. You've seen someone clean like this. There's no sense of urgency because their flight time is too long. Their arms aren't moving very fast. They're not pulling themselves under the bar. Yeah, that's my thoughts. I think the jump cue works for a lot of people. Doesn't work for some people, but yeah. What are your thoughts on flywheels for athletic performance? I don't really have thoughts on flywheels. I've never really used them. I just haven't had access to them. The ones that I have used, I had it on campus, and they were kind of shitty. They would get like, it's supposed to be a forced eccentric action. So like, for example, if you're doing an RDL, once you get to the top of an RDL, it's supposed to pull you down. The ones we had, it would get stuck and it would delay the pulling you down like a second and a half, and it was just like really hard to use. So I've never really used them. I'm sure there's a lot of ways that you can use them. You can implement them for athletic performance. I wish I had a resource to send you for someone who's done a lot in flywheels, but I don't. But yeah, just look into them. You'll find some good stuff, I'm sure. All right, last set of bench here, set of 6. .13, so I was even slower for my last rep. All right, deficit Pendlay rows. I'm running short on time, so I might have to kind of rush through these a little bit. Hopefully I can get another question answered. Yeah. Hey, Will, where does the term tempo run come from? In the running world, that commonly refers to lactate threshold work near or slightly above race pace, 10 to 30 minutes, or intervals with extremely incomplete rest. Yeah, no, you're right. The tempo run that I'm referring to comes from like the Charlie Francis version of it, so more of like a sprinter's mindset. But no, you're right with the way you're describing tempo training. That is like the technically correct tempo training. I'm just thinking of it of more like in terms of using a form of tempo training for like an anaerobic athlete, I guess. What are my top 3 favorite athletes to watch play their sports any time period? So I'll just go sport by sport. For football, I'm going to say Adrian Peterson. He was probably the best football player that I've ever watched. He was so fun to watch. Basketball, I would have said Kevin Garnett, but now that Anthony Edwards is on the Wolves, I'm gonna say Anthony Edwards. John Morant is really fun to watch too, and Russell Westbrook. But I'm gonna go with Anthony Edwards for basketball. Hockey, I don't know enough about hockey. I don't know many hockey players, so I can't say hockey. Baseball, if you guys remember Johan Santana, he played for the Twins when I was like in middle school. Really good pitcher. But if I'm gonna pick someone who's not a pitcher, probably Ken Griffey Jr. Oh, no, Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds is my favorite baseball player ever. Dude was a beast. That's it, guys. Thanks for watching.